What's up, everybody? Welcome back in as the victims in the Idaho 4 case with Brian Kohberger as the defendant are speaking out again. And this time they have some not so nice words for not just Judge, but also specifically the prosecution team and their thoughts about how they've handled this case and how they handled the change of venue situation. But not just that, they also have a plan for whatever county this case ends up in. They're going to make sure that county knows who they are, knows what they're about, and gets their support. And that's really important for how this case is going to go in the future. We're going to listen to an interview with Brian Entin and the Goncalves family here. Make sure you guys hit the like button, throw your questions in the comment. Let me know what you think about this, because I think we learn a lot every time they speak. Zach Morris style timeout. I recorded this video a day early on Thursday because I'm heading out of town this morning to Tallahassee, Florida to watch the Noles play and hopefully win a game. But more information has come out. So you're about to hear me break down the interview with the victim's family before they know a lot of these answers. And my reactions are before I know a lot of the answers that we all know now. What is the venue? Who is the judge? And where will Brian Kohberger be housed until the trial in this new venue? Well, guess what? We have the order from the Supreme Court. We are going to break it down at the end of this video, right after we break down the victim's interview with Brian Entin. So stick around to the end because a lot of new information coming out. So I want to remember as we watch this, these are people grieving, dealing with the most unimaginable thing in the world for multiple years, and frustrations and roadblocks and things that the world has been throwing at them that are so difficult to deal with. Some people don't like their antics or don't like the way they handle things. And I get it. Everybody would do things a little bit differently. I don't understand what it's like to be in their shoes. I would never want to be in their shoes. And I know what a lot of victims are like and what they go through and how difficult it is and how they feel so powerless. I feel like the Goncalves family has done everything they can to try to take control back, do what they think is right, whether we agree with them, whether you agree with them, I agree with them or not, doesn't matter. I think they are doing what they think is right. We've talked about how it could potentially affect the case in the future. We talked about potentially claims they could have against the state, law enforcement, whatever it may be, and how they left the option open for those claims. Well, there are more shots coming at the prosecution team here now. And if this all ends in a conviction and they got the right guy and Brian Kohberger is actually guilty and they get the death penalty and whatever, et cetera, and it's all wins across the board for the prosecution, I think everybody sings Kumbaya and shakes hands and says, thanks, sorry I was hard on you, but I appreciate everything you did. But if it goes the other way, this is an indication that that's not going to be the end. So let's jump into this interview as Brian Entin asks them how they feel about the change of venue and getting a new judge on the case.
She's, of course, one of the victims. I spoke to her family about this decision. I was in the studio last night and spoke to them. Take a look.
Let me start with you, Steve and Christy. What was your reaction to this ruling from the judge that there will be a change of venue, and then also that he is no longer going to be on the case?
So I actually heard those separately. They didn't come together for me. Somehow I got that the venue was going to be changed, but no location had been decided, or that the Supreme Court would be deciding that. So that was a little like, okay, disappointed. And then
exactly, like, think about that. It's like, okay, so we got changed venue. That sucks. Okay, where is it? Oh, we still don't know that either. Like, it's one thing to break this down if you're following the case or paying attention or you're a lawyer looking at it. It's another thing when this is your life. And it's like you just have to wait and wait and wait. And then the decision finally comes. And guess what? The decision is we still don't know who the judge is or where the trial is going to be. It sucks. It really sucks.
Shortly after I heard about the judge. So I was on the phone with Steve saying, have you talked to Shannon? And he's like, I just got off the phone with Shannon now, so I'll call you back. So, they kind of had a discussion with Olivia and Steve and Shannon. And then he kind of called me back, and I was kind of losing my mind a bit, like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the end. We're losing control. But he kind of, after he got me in on their discussion, I think that it's all for the best and there's a silver lining. I think, getting rid of, we still don't know what county. So that still could be Nez Perce, could possibly be Kootenai County. And I think that I think the judge was in over his head, and I think getting a judge in that's way more decisive with a heavier hand and ready to
way more decisive with a heavier hand. So that's usually the type of judge I prefer. I don't know if I'd use the word heavier hand, but way more decisive. Absolutely. I don't think Judge was completely indecisive, but a lot of lawyers are scared of a judge with what you call a heavy hand, because usually that goes both ways. With fair and impartial judges, they'll have a heavy hand to both sides. The victim's family, I don't think, would care about that, but I don't know if the state would want that, right? Because we know multiple times they've lost motions to compel after they've objected and said, we're not going to turn this over. The judge is like, yeah, you got to turn this over. With a heavier hand, there could be sanctions. They could lose witnesses. Potentially, they could lose the right to use certain things for evidence as a sanction if they don't turn it over appropriately. So careful what you wish for sometimes. That's usually, because I usually, for myself, and people called me the king of fees or something this year, was it fees? I can't remember what it was, but I was like, yeah, if the lawyers break the rules, sanction. I don't care. Sanction all the lawyers that break the rules, because I'm not going to break the rules. They're like, well, you got to be careful, because sometimes you might accidentally, or you might need an extension if somebody doesn't give it to you. And so you got to have more grace there as well. And I agree. And I'm trying to find a middle ground, because I see all my clients looking at me just like these victims are looking at their lawyer and looking at the judge and the prosecutor. I'm like, why is this taking so long? This is so frustrating. And that's usually what I go in there with all this passion. But sometimes you need to realize that there are reasons for certain extensions, but I want to be able to have the tools and the allowance for a judge to be heavy-handed when it's necessary and when it's egregious. And that finding that balanced judge who is decisive and will make a change. And if a judge is going to hold your feet to the fire, you don't want to get burned. So you're going to do what you got to do. And that's the point. That's what everybody should want in the legal system.
To hit the ground running might be exactly what we need. Hopefully it doesn't delay things and we could just go.
Steve, were you, I was reading through your statement. I mean, have you been frustrated with the prosecution? Because I was at the last hearing when they had the change of venue hearing, and, you know, it does seem like the prosecution doesn't always push back a lot on some of these, you know, defense witnesses and defense arguments.
Yeah, we are a family of action. We are get-her-dones, you know, put the foot down to the metal and go. We went and hired Shannon. Thank God we have legal counsel, because if there's ever been a case where you need somebody that you trust and somebody you can work with, it's been him. Any family that goes through some tragedy like this, I highly recommend you find somebody that you trust, that really knows the ins and outs of that courtroom. So we hit the ground first.
I literally had to pause there because I couldn't agree more with him. He's so right. I can't imagine how much harder this would have been if they didn't have Shannon Gray to say, yeah, I got like every delay. I'm telling you, folks, it happens in my cases all the time when it's their own case and they're waiting. It's not a criminal case, a civil case, whatever it may be. They can't understand the delay. They can't understand why certain sides are making arguments, why it feels like they're being put on trial here when they're actually the victim. They feel like the criminal defendant. Why is nobody believing what they're saying? Why is it taking so long? Why doesn't the judge force the other side to do this and that? Why don't they see it my way? And to have a lawyer explain it to you is a world of difference in trying to figure out on your own and trying to realize that you're actually right. It's unfair. It's not a fair system. It's very difficult. It's delayed justice, and delayed justice is no justice at all. Well, there's only delayed justice, it feels like, in our justice system these days. And that's why, you know, when I'm in these meetings, I'm like, sanction if they delay, sanction if they don't do this, because we've got to speed these wheels of justice up. It is totally inappropriate how long it takes for all this stuff to get done. It is totally inappropriate that different sides can win by delaying and waiting other sides out and milking them of all the money and resources that they have and time that they have. So having a lawyer actually be there to explain it to you makes a world of difference. I'm glad he said that. I'm glad he feels that way. It shows you Shannon Gray is doing a good job of letting him know this is why. This is just how it works. This doesn't mean what it sounds like. It's not as bad as it sounds. This actually might be a good thing. To have somebody explaining that to you, maybe seeing the glass half full sometimes when you always feel like it's half empty when you're going through something like this. Big difference. I'm glad they have found that. It's not perfect. It's not great. Not everything has gone their way, but at least they feel like they can take some solace in that and how that part of the case has gone because Shannon Gray has been able to explain that to them along the way. We've done it for a lot of folks. Honestly, I'm glad to hear him say that. It like warms my heart because I know sometimes they don't always say it to the lawyers or they don't always tell the lawyers, even though I think that's what's happening. They're just so frustrated with the overall process. They don't even understand who's helping and making it better. So I'm glad he does. That was great.
First, and we said, you know, you got to be more aggressive. You guys have to be more aggressive. And they push.
And so this is him. I'm backing up real quick. This is him talking to the state telling them they need to be more aggressive. As the victim, you have the opportunity to talk to the state. They don't represent you. They're not going to do whatever you say necessarily, but they take into account your thoughts, your feelings, what you think is the right thing to do. And he's saying, I was telling him, be aggressive. You can tell he's a pretty aggressive guy, probably generally. He's a get her done type, as he said. And he was telling him, be more aggressive, be more aggressive. But at a certain point, he's got to trust him.
Hit the ground first. And we said, you got to be more aggressive. You guys have to be more aggressive. And they pushed back at us. And here we are 2 months away from 2 years and they're resetting. So we were right. We told them they needed to be a little more aggressive, maybe a lot more aggressive, somewhere in the middle. And, here we are today and we were right. But we can course correct. We can get this fixed. We can get the right guy in the right chair and we can go from there. And I totally have belief in the Idaho Supreme Court. I know that they're going to pick somebody that they trust, somebody that they're already going to be well known about his cases and his work history. So everything that he puts down, it's not.
So they're thinking the Supreme Court of the state is going to pick the best judge for this case, somebody who knows what he's doing. She said earlier, Ms. Goncalves said that she thought Judge was in over his head, not able to do this, indecisive. They want a judge that's more confident, maybe has a better experience, whatever it may be, the best judge for this case. They think the Supreme Court is going to do that for them, and that's going to be the best option for them. So we'll see. We'll see if they do it on rotation. We'll see if somebody gets handpicked. We'll see if it's a special kind of appointment for a judge, a retired judge, senior judge, who the heck knows? Maybe Judge Boyce, after they've seen what he's done on some high-profile cases. I don't know how it works, how the Supreme Court chooses the judge in this situation in Idaho. So we're going to find out just like them. And the Supreme Court can look and determine what the best venue is as well. So that is a good thing, right? If you have, the most experienced people in the state making these decisions, what more can you really ask for? And again, my guess is Shannon Gray helped them get to this point because I'm sure they were pretty pissed and fuming when they read or saw or heard about the order.
Not going to be questioned because they're not going to pick somebody with a questionable past. So that'll be the best.
Do you know, Shannon, I was looking over some of the deadlines in the case. I think there's a November 7th deadline, a hearing for the death penalty issue that came, the defense fighting the death penalty. So will it be a whole new judge now in a whole new courtroom for everything moving forward?
Well, as soon as they change the venue, they pick the select and they tell us what county it's going to be in, I'm assuming that assignment will include a judge who will be presiding over the case. Obviously, all of the current decisions that have been made on the case, he can either stick with or go back. Normally, they stick with the decisions that have been made and then anything moving forward. So all of these motions.
So it's very rare that a judge will go to a prior presiding judge. Even in Glanville's situation, she didn't just undo all of his orders. And that's a guy that was basically thrown off the case for some of the stuff that he did. So when you have a judge who no wrongdoing, no even accusations of wrongdoing by either side from any of the prior decisions, it would be very unusual and rare for a judge to go change some of those decisions. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we're going to talk about some of the decisions that maybe they're going to ask the state to push back on. Whether the state will, I don't know.
That have been filed regarding the death penalty and some of the other aggravating factors. Those will be decisions that this judge makes on the case. And so, we're hopeful that will be either in Kootenai County or Nez Perce because they're closer locations and there's competent judges that can handle the.
So I also think it's very smart for them to publicly come out as the victims. It's almost like they're talking to the Supreme Court here, right? Pick a judge that's really experienced. That's the best judge for this. And here are some, I'm not going to even try to butcher the names of the counties they picked, but here are some of the counties we think would be best. Ada County is the one that we heard most of. Ada County's had some of the bigger cases. Ada County is probably the default, but we're not mentioning Ada County. We're mentioning some of these other counties that we would like. We would like some of these other counties. Does that mean they're going to do it? I don't know. Does it mean they have to do it? I don't know, but it can't hurt. If you have a preference, throw it out there, see what happens.
These types of cases and just get this thing going. So.
And I know how hard it is, Christy and Steve, when you guys have to go to the hearings and kind of get the lay of the land there and get to know the people. And I'm just thinking you will have to, I guess, sort of reacclimate to a whole new process in terms of, the way you see Kohberger and where you sit. You've kind of gotten a little bit used to where you're at, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're prepared for that. We were just talking about that earlier. We'll have to kind of retouch with this community, whatever community it is, and get to know this community as well, and hopefully we have the support and the love that we do from Latah County, which I don't see why we wouldn't. And
So they want to touch and connect with that community, which I think is interesting, right? Because that was one of the big things as to why they felt like it had to get out of this community. People were too involved, too connected, would feel too guilty if they let him go. And now they're dropping things like they want to get connected with that community. They want to have the love and support of that community like they felt in Latah County.
and just depend on that community to support us, and like you said, learn the lay of the land and the courtroom. And that will take a bit, but hopefully he'll be in orange next time we see him.
Hopefully he'll be in orange next time we see him. So first off, I would assume any community is going to support them. First off, that's what I would expect. But she wants to see him in orange. That's something they've mentioned a million times, is him being able to wear this suit in the courtrooms. So unfair. And the reason for it was to not poison the jury pool. But now that we're changing the venue, we're not as worried about that. So put him in orange. I would be surprised if that changed, because the media is not going to stop once it changes venue. The media will absolutely ramp up once we get close to trial. So I would expect it would take something, I would think, for the judge to go back on that. And when he has hearings, for him to show up in the orange jumpsuit. But what do I know?
And he won't be in his fancy suit anymore.
Well, yeah, they made such a big deal, Steve, of having him in the suit. I think the assumption was because it was going to be in that community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a strategy that we were somewhat made aware of, no promises or anything along those lines, but there was a strategy. We didn't necessarily agree with it, but you trust, you put your trust in the people that have been in that room. And then when it just backfires, it's time to put your foot down and say. So
my guess is, again, this is purely a guess. Okay. This is my opinion. What he meant by that was they agreed with the defense to let him wear the suit so that they could try the case in Latah County, so it wouldn't completely poison the jury pool every time he showed up in the orange jumpsuit. So the state was like, listen, this is strategic. We're going to allow him to do that so we can do everything we can to keep the case here. No promises, but this will give us our best shot to keep the case here, because the more articles, the more pictures, the more tweets, the more YouTube videos that show him in the orange vest, the local media here in Latah County, the more likely that the venue gets changed. So we're going to do our best to keep it here. And this is one of the things we're going to do, let him wear the suit. And now they're saying that completely backfired. Now he's gotten to wear the suit. Now people are starting to say he's innocent because he looks just like a lawyer or somebody else in the room. And they're going to change venue. We didn't get anything for it. He should have been in the orange jumpsuit the whole time. Push, push, push. And now they're putting their foot on the state even more, saying, you better do this. They are putting a lot of pressure on the state. And I don't think that's new. And I don't think they're very happy with the state. I don't think they're happy with how they've made arguments and what they've done and what they've allowed and what they've agreed to. And they're making it known publicly now. And we'll see if the state says any of this violates the gag order or is inappropriate in any way, shape, or form, or gets upset about this. We'll see.
Okay, the way you've been doing it isn't working. I'm not going to risk my daughter's life over, you guys playing little games of not cross-examining and not doing the extra mile. If the other side's going to be working till the very end, till an hour left of the courtroom, then you know what? You talk until the end, and then we do it again. We don't give up. We don't quit. We don't take the easy way road out. And I kind of felt like we were being out hustled sometimes. And, that needs to end.
When he says we, he means the state. He means that side is being outworked, out hustled. That needs to end. That's not appropriate.
Especially once we get to trial time.
Were you surprised, Shannon, that the judge wants off the case? I guess, I don't know. I felt like he was kind of invested, when I went to the hearings. Maybe I had the wrong, perception.
I think I was more surprised by the things that were mentioned in the order, how, deficient Latah County was in handling this type of case. And, a list of all of the things, the court clerks, the staff, the security, all the expenses, the privacy, the rooms that could be provided for the defense and the prosecution. And I was more surprised at that and how.
And the fact that the jury room is not soundproof, or there's so many things I was like, how do they ever have a trial here almost? It was a little shocking to hear how do they ever even have a trial in this courthouse? But obviously they do, like all of them in that county. So it was a little strange.
Strong of a basis, he used that in his order to grant the motion to change venue. And, these aren't issues that just happened yesterday. They've existed since the beginning of this case. And so I was.
In fairness, though, did he know how big this was going to be? Early on, he definitely did, dealing with the gag orders and the cameras in the courtroom and stuff. But I don't know. I'm trying to help out Judge here, but it is true. Those issues were there from the jump, basically.
Surprised that was really a strong basis for the change of venue.
Frankly, they need to fix some of those issues in Latah County with like the soundproof rooms and place for a defense attorney to meet with a witness if they need to. Like, that's fundamental fairness in every trial. Was
the deficiencies in Latah County that he thought that it could not handle a case of this size and this type of publicity. And I think the family feels like if that was his belief from the beginning, well, we should have jumped off the horse a lot earlier, and got this going in a direction that's not as delay oriented. So
there are also those issues that you talk about that he talked so much about in the ruling are not really issues that came up much at the hearing. Like That wasn't a big part of the argument, but then it was a big part of his ruling.
Well, and the other thing Steve and Christy and I have talked about it is the missed opportunities for the cross-examine of the witnesses. A judge.
So before we get to that, completely understand where En's coming from. And I agree, it wasn't a big part of the hearing, but once somebody makes the motion to change venue and the judge knows the reasons that they might have to change venue, if the judge sees a reason in the interest of justice to change venue, even in addition to what some of the arguments are made, it's unusual and you don't have to do it. But if the judge does see it, he should say, and this is also another reason why we have to move it. You're not limited to just what one lawyer says. If in the interest of justice, the right thing would be to change venue based on the way the courthouse is set up. They did mention it. They don't have to take 2 hours on it just for the judge to consider it. The judge heard it. The judge did consider it. The judge did more research and found out, okay, I think in my estimation as judge, that we can't do it in this courtroom for this reason, that reason, the other reason. That's totally appropriate. He doesn't have to not use a reason just because the defense didn't bring it up when he's trying to do his research and figure out, is this really a place where Brian Kohberger can get a fair trial? But now they're going to get into another thing about how the state just didn't cross-examine, didn't ask any, or didn't bring any witnesses, which the judge mentioned in his order. And Shannon Gray is going to bring up an analogy I have a little bit of an issue with, but generally the general principle I think he's trying to get across, I do agree with. I'll kind of explain my nitpick. And again, this is a YouTube show. It's Monday Morning Quarterback. I'm not trying to, go in on him. My guess is he would agree with me on my little nitpick of a pushback that we're going to have with his analogy here.
Has to base his decision opportunities for the cross-examine of the witnesses. A judge has to base his decisions on what's presented in front of him. And if you only present one side, that's what he has to believe. If I say that, that over there is a green chair and everybody sees that it's a purple chair, but I've shown that it's a green chair, and I don't come say, no, it's a purple chair, right? Then, they end up, the judge has to go with what they had an expert. He said it was a green chair. I guess it's a green chair, right? So
the only pushback I would say is the judge is still allowed to weigh witness credibility. The judge is still allowed to use common sense, just like a jury is. And the judge is able to use his own eyes and ears, right? So if there's literally a purple chair sitting over there and an expert witness says it's green, even if the other side gets up and doesn't say anything, it doesn't object to it, it doesn't say it's a purple chair, if the judge can look and see that that's a purple chair, the judge is still allowed to say that's a purple chair. And in this case, the judge absolutely could have said, no, denied, change of venue, denied, if he would have looked through and either not agreed with the witness or, the witness's report said it was basically the same in certain percentages and areas in Latah County and other counties, or he could have said, no, I really don't think the survey questions asked. I think they were pushing this on the survey, the people answering the questions. The judge could still disagree with some of the testimony, so he doesn't have to agree with them. But when you're talking about, maybe a chair in another room, and it's like, this is how you build the chair, and the other side doesn't get up and explain how you build a chair, and the judge is like, well, I don't really know how to build a chair, and the expert said this is how you have to build a chair, then yes, the judge has to go with the evidence presented that this is how you build the chair. And it has to be based on the evidence, right? So if the judge can look at the chair and the chair is there, that's evidence the judge can base it off of, even if somebody says it's I can't remember, green or purple, whatever the actuality is, says it's green, even though it's purple, the judge can still say, no, I'm looking with my eyes, that's a purple chair. But if the only evidence is the expert witness testimony presented, like in this case, if the judge doesn't have anything to, the state did cross, that's my point. They did cross-examine, they did poke some holes, not really an extensive job, and they didn't present any of their own witnesses or evidence to prove that Latah County was the best county for it. So I agree in principle with what he's saying. They didn't do their job in presenting evidence and pushing the judge to decide this. The nitpick was just more of like lawyers always have to say it depends. And I'm sure a million lawyers could nitpick a million things and analogies I give on these videos. So no offense to that at all towards Shannon Gray, but just for you guys to understand and explain. And I guarantee with the audience that we have that you would have had some of those questions. So that's why I wanted to proactively answer them. But generally speaking, yeah, if one side's putting up this big fight and presenting all this evidence and the other side does nothing, usually the side putting up all the evidence, and usually that's the state putting up all this evidence, the defense has no burden. We don't have to ask any questions. Yeah, but if you really do nothing, I've literally talked to jurors, my friends, and some other jurors who've wanted to talk to me about their experience. They're like, we were begging for the defense to do something and they did nothing. So a lot of times the side that builds the mountain wins. And that's what he's saying. The defense is over there building a mountain, and I don't feel like the state's building anything.
You know, there was a lot of missed opportunities, I think the family felt like throughout this case, not just the change of venue motions, but any expert witnesses that have been presented in this case, the cross-examination the family feels has been pretty slim to none.
I like how he says the family feels, not necessarily him, but the family feels.
So,
and just my last question, Christy, I mean, you're such a strong family, and there's been so many twists and turns like that. I don't think anyone really expected along the way. I mean, how do you guys manage to hold it together so well?
Oh boy, it's not easy, but I've got him and the rest of the kids and our moms, and we all hash it out together. We all cry together and just and we've got Shannon to get on the phone, big group calls and figure it out, and we always try to find the silver lining, and like, this isn't the end, this isn't the end of the road. This is not over. This isn't a, because I take it to heart, like that's a win for them, and it's like tick for tack. But, other people in the family have different mentality than that. And, they say, Mom, you got to look at the bigger picture. You can't, it's not tick for tack. It's not tick for tack. And sometimes I'm kind of simple-minded like that, but I got to talk to the kids and they grounded me and bring me back down, and Steve does and Shannon does. And I just got to keep talking to them and listening to them and have them help me out.
A reminder that there was DNA evidence found on the sleeve underneath the leg. That good luck with that. Let's bring it.
So that's something new, right? That he drops. There's some DNA under the sleeve, under the leg. What does he mean? What does he mean? What DNA evidence? Whose DNA? Whose sleeve? Whose leg? Good luck beating that, he says. So a little confidence at the end. I mean, that little nugget he drops at the end is really interesting. Really interesting. And brand new as far as I'm concerned. It's the first I'm hearing of it. Unless I'm misunderstanding it to be something that we've already mentioned before, but didn't sound like he just put it.
And don't be scared of this. I mean, it's the pinnacle of evidence. Nothing is stronger than DNA. It's 100% science-based. And, we've got, 5 billion, reasons to think that we have the right guy. So let's go. Let's stop delaying. Stop playing games. Get the right person. And let's get this going.
So you can imagine the frustration that the Goncalves.
So no follow-up. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe that was already there. Maybe he meant the sleeve of the knife, not like a shirt sleeve is what I was thinking when he said that, but I don't know. Seems like new information to me. But you guys let me know what you think, and maybe I missed it. It's already been said in something else. All right. Well, guess what, folks? We have answers. Where will this trial be? Who will be the judge? And will Bryan Kohberger move from one jail to the next? We get our answers from the Supreme Court in Idaho. They have issued this order, which we're going to read together. An order granting the defendant's motion to change venue was entered in the district court, wherein it was requested that venue for trial be transferred from Latah County Second Judicial District in the case listed below, State v. Brian Kohberger. Therefore, after due consideration and good cause appearing, it is ordered that venue for all further proceedings in this case, including trial, are transferred from Latah County, which is the second judicial district, to, no surprise, Ada County, fourth judicial district. So why did they choose Ada County? I think it's pretty obvious. Biggest county. If you look at the surveys, if you listen to the defense's evidence and where they were pointing and what they recommended as being the potentially best county with the most potentially unbiased jurors, it was Ada County always. If you look at Ada County, the real reason I always thought I was going to go there is because of Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow. Those cases were transferred there. Those trials went over seemingly well, and everything seemed to go fine with the courthouse, the clerk, everything there, the resources, and it didn't take over the city. It didn't create some kind of huge problem for them to be able to find a jury that was unbiased. So it was always seemingly being Ada County, but as we just heard from the victim's family, doesn't seem like that's necessarily their first choice, as it is potentially hours and hours away for them. So they're either going to have to stay over there. I think they said it was around 6 hours from where some of these witnesses and family members live. So driving back and forth in one day seems impossible. So every time there's a hearing, they're either going to have to be there remotely, or they're going to have to drive 6 hours, or they're going to have to stay overnight there. That creates issues, but thank God for technology. It's a positive in this scenario where they are still able to zoom in and watch and be a part of the proceedings whenever they want to be, even though it's hours away. And I wonder if that's going to affect change of venue hearings going forward and change of venue decisions going forward, because before, if it was virtually impossible or difficult, or they couldn't leave their jobs or their families and make this happen, it was a heavier balance or a heavier weight against changing venue. And now it's a little bit later a little bit lighter of a weight, because we have the new technology that allows us to do this even from further away. It is further ordered that the district judge, Stephen Hippler, shall be assigned to this case and may not be disqualified without cause pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 25A9C. Don't worry. We're going to take a little look at his resume and learn a little about the background of Stephen Hippler. I don't know him personally, never done anything in front of him. Obviously, he's in Idaho, but we will take a look because he's got an interesting background for this case. Next, it is further ordered that defendant shall be transferred forthwith to the custody of the Ada County Sheriff pursuant to Idaho Code Section 19-1805. So Brian Kohberger is leaving Latah County, going to Ada County. That's where he will be housed from now until trial. How will that affect his meetings with Ann Taylor? I don't know. I don't really know where everything is in Idaho. I don't know how far people are from certain things, but I don't know if this is easier or harder for her to meet with Brian Kohberger or get with him, by Zoom or whatever it may be. So I don't know the answer to that, but he's changing, which is interesting, right? If he had gotten comfortable there, if he had any friends there or people that he confided in or liked anything or whatever, most of his time is probably spent alone. But I don't know if he knew of any of the guards or if he had any, fans that would come visit him there, because, weirder things have happened. I don't know, but it's something new for him, somewhere new for him. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't know. It is further ordered that the district court clerk for Latah County shall file and serve this order upon the parties or their counsel and take any action necessary to transfer venue of this case to Ada County. So we'll see if moving to the bigger county affects the media attention, affects the fairness. I think I've read some interviews already with the Ada County clerk, and she's saying, we're good to go. We're ready. We've handled this before. We are the county that can handle cases like this. And so they don't foresee any issues there. So it's official. The case is moving to Ada County. The judge is Stephen Hippler, and Kohberger is moving to the Ada County Jail. Okay? So that's a lot of new information in this case, and we'll see if it causes any delays, if this judge decides to overturn any of Judge's prior decisions. We'll see if he makes Kohberger show up in the orange jumpsuit. We'll see if he allows a lot of the same things to stay in place that already were. Is this going to cause a delay in the trial? What's the Ada County court system look like from June to August, I think, is when the trial is set? Is that going to be something that's going to have to be continued because they already have 5 trials set that take precedent over this? A lot of unanswered questions that we're still going to have to see. Can't wait for our first hearing with this new judge to see how things go and to try to get a vibe for him. So I've looked at a couple different places on Stephen Hippler. This is the most information that's corroborated with other official websites. I don't really know what Trellis is, but most of this information is corroborated, but this has some extra as well. I've also looked into the firm that he worked at just to confirm kind of my thoughts on his background, but let's take a look at this. Stephen Hippler is a judge for the 4th Judicial District Court of Idaho. He was appointed to the bench by former Governor Butch Otter in 2013. So he's only been on the bench 11 years. That's not nothing. That's as long as I've been a lawyer, right? But some of the stuff the victims were saying, maybe they wanted a 25-year judge. Maybe they wanted some chief justice, whatever it may be. But this is a guy who normally works in Ada County. He'll be comfortable there. It's his courthouse. This is where he tries cases as a judge. So that all works. He's familiar with the staff, the bailiffs, things like that, with where everything is in the courthouse, where defense counsel can meet with their client, what rooms are soundproof, what rooms are not. Like we heard, that were issues in Latah County. The 4th Judicial District includes Ada, Boise, Elmore, and Valley counties. During his judicial tenure, Hippler has served as the administrative district judge for the 4th Judicial District. He has held an assignment in Ada County, where he has presided over the Ada County Mental Health Court, as well as civil and felony calendar. So he's done civil and criminal work, felony being the more serious criminal work, which obviously makes sense since he's a district court judge. But he also does a lot with the mental health court, which I find interesting. I find good. I love that. And judges that have experience in that, will it affect anything in this case? Who knows? We'll see. Prior to his appointment, here's where we get to some of his background. Prior to his appointment, he was a partner, which is a good thing, at Givens Pursley, LLP since 2002. Before joining the firm, he was a partner at Hall, Farley, Oberecht, and Blanton. His areas of practice included medical malpractice, business disputes, and regulatory matters. So what this tells me, I looked at some of these firms, looked at some of the cases they handled and type of work they do. It's silver stocking-esque, big firm-esque, big law-esque, mostly on the defense side, representing, big companies, corporations, big entities, doctors, not the plaintiff side like I do. He'd be against me in a lot of the civil cases if we were to ever run into each other on a case, defending a medical malpractice case, defending the doctor if I would be representing the person who had the injury or the death as a result of medical malpractice. So that's the type of lawyer he is. So what do we know about defense lawyers? What do we know about big law firms? Well, probably have to be pretty smart. Probably have to have a pretty good education. You have to interview well. You have to be able to land business and churn billing and create revenue, because he was a partner at both of these bigger firms. So that's no joke. Legit guy, right? Some judges, I hear some lawyers talk about judges like we have some great judges, we have some bad judges. Some of the bad judges are ones that couldn't make it in certain industries, and they're like, okay, I'll just be a judge. That may be true, maybe falls for some people. Some judges go from being public defenders or state attorneys to judges. It's kind of a natural advancement. If you work for the government your whole career, that's kind of the top of the line if you don't want to try cases anymore, or, it's just kind of a different vibe. And then you have some guys or gals that just want to be judges. And it seems like that's the type that he would fall into, which would make me think he's going to be an intellectual. He's going to be a smart judge. But I'll also say civil defense attorneys and civil attorneys just generally, because I do a lot of civil work now, used to do a lot of criminal work. There was a time where I did, 50-50. The vast majority of trial work for most people that do both types is criminal. Like still, even though for the past, 5 or 6 years, I've done 90% civil, 75% of my trials are still criminal. I would say 3 to 1. Every time I do one civil trial, I've done 3 criminal trials, and I still jump on some criminal trials today and I'll second chair them. So maybe not a ton of trial experience. I don't know if he was a public defender or state attorney prior to going into big law. That happens sometimes. Maybe he has some criminal trial experience, but it seems like on what I've been reading, most of his experience is in civil law, big law type of experience. And so that'll be interesting on how that crosses over. Will it be a little bit of a different vibe? I kind of like it for this case. He wasn't a prosecutor. He wasn't a public defender. Nobody can say he's going to be biased for one side or the other. Even though judges usually aren't, even when people say that, generally speaking, judges seem like they're in favor of the prosecution. That's just kind of an overarching theme to most judges. At least that's my opinion. Not all, but I think if you ask most criminal defense attorneys, that would be the vibe. Hippler received his bachelor's degree from Boise State University. So he's at least from college, a local there. He then completed his JD at University of Utah. Hippler, and that's in 1991. So he's been a lawyer for a long time. What is that? That's 4 years younger than I am. So he's been a lawyer for 32, 33-ish years. Does that sound about right? It's a long time. And I kind of like it, right? So he was a lawyer from 1991 until 2013. So that's 10, 22 years. Is that right? 22 years as a lawyer before becoming a judge. So very experienced. And then about 11 years as a judge. He served as a member of the Idaho Supreme Court's Rules of Civil Procedure Committee. How about that? A guy after my own heart, right? I love when judges sit on the committees with us because we are the ones dealing with the laws together, and they have to know, what are we thinking? Why are these laws this way? They have to tell us as the lawyers, this is how we deal with it as judges. You think it's so easy. You think we're the ones delaying, but we're not. Because of this, that, and the other, it makes it harder. If the rule said this, that, or the other, it'd be easier. So the fact that he is digging in, knows the rules, has written the rules, I love it. He's going to know the rules. He's going to be an intellectual about them. He's going to know how they're supposed to be done. Hopefully, he's going to hold people's feet to the fire. I will say one of my complaints about some of these defense lawyers is they like to delay cases because they think it gets better for them. But hopefully, he's not that type of defense lawyer, civil defense lawyer, right? But I will say he was on civil rules, right? Not criminal rules. Still important, still shows a certain type of character and type of guy to give back and spend all that time trying to better and write the rules. So kudos to him for that. But this is a criminal case, right? So will this be different? Is his experience more civil? It seems that way to me, but that's not that unusual for judges who handle and rotate within civil and criminal, but just interested to see. I will tell you, there are some criminal judges that come over to the civil side and really don't know the rules, and it's tough, and lawyers have to educate them sometimes in their motions, respectfully. Same thing from going civil to criminal. Sometimes we've got to be like, judge, in criminal courts or criminal trials, it's a little bit different. This is how it works. And a lot of times the judge, if they respect the lawyers and know the lawyers, which I think all the lawyers in this case are experienced enough and have been around the block enough that he is going to trust them if they say, if he is new to criminal, which I don't know when he rotated into criminal, but if he is, they'll be able to walk him along and explain things to him, and he'll do his own research and he can figure it out, right? He's a smart guy, clearly. It's just going to be an experience question. And does he have a ton of criminal experience? I just don't know the answer to that. He was admitted to practice in Idaho in the United States District Court of Idaho. He served as a member of the Idaho Supreme Court. Oh, sorry, I already read that. And the jury committee, and was part of the Supreme Court task force tasked with revamping the language of the Idaho Rules of Civil Procedure. I love that. I was on a very similar thing in Florida when it happened this time. And I'll tell you, some of the rules didn't turn out the way that I wish they would have. But being on the task force, being able to voice our opinion, be the minority voice on some of the rules, be part of the majority voice on some of the rules is great. It's a great experience. You learn, you understand, you see how it works. And that's really important to me. And the fact that he was on the jury committee as well, really important when it comes to a jury trial that's going to be very difficult. So I love this guy's experience personally. I love it. We'll see how he is. We'll see his disposition. Don't know anything about that. He's a native of Boise. Very cool. He attended Bishop Kelly High School. In his free time, he coached youth football and youth baseball. Sports guy. I love this guy even more. So that's Stephen Hippler. So that's kind of cool. We get a little insight into this new judge. We'll see how he does. I'm looking forward to see if there's a different dynamic. We'll see how the victim's family feels about him because we know they're going to be outspoken about it. But that's all we got, folks. Pickleball this morning went great. Crushed the other team. Already did my cold plunge. I'm just feeling revitalized and ready to go to Tallahassee. So I'm heading out of here this morning. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button. Send some love my way on Twitter. Only if Florida State's winning. Don't even mention it if Florida State loses because I'm just trying to not let it ruin my weekend. There's like a cheerleading thing for, the young girls. So my daughter, and we're bringing my niece as well. They're going to go do that. It's going to be hopefully a really fun weekend hanging out at the condo. We're going to see John and have a good time, hopefully. So hopefully you guys all have a good weekend as well. We also have a Saturday special video for you. Some new stuff happening in Sarah Boone's case. She gets yet another lawyer, but this time not a replacement, a co-counsel, second lawyer. So that video is going to drop Saturday morning. So make sure you guys check that out. Hit the like button, subscribe, do all the YouTube-y things. Until next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.